Hello, this is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Welcome back to the 30th video in the War in the East series. Let's get a situation report. Believe it or not, we are still in July. 30 July. That's great news. Even better news, no mud. Clear weather, solid ground across all three Soviet zones. So I've only done a few moves, chasing off partisans, did some railroad repairs, and I couldn't help myself. I started to look at the opportunities that were presented to us when the Soviets got very aggressive and started to move south and west of Smolensk. So I've started the initial prep to get an encirclement around these forces. Some initial attacks here using economy of force. The 28th Jaeger and these assorted infantry divisions are starting to pave the way for the 57th Panzer Corps to attack north and then west and get an encirclement. We are going to commit the 30th Panzer Corps. Take a look where this 203rd Panzer Regiment could actually reach. Yes, fantastic. So we have a real opportunity to get an encirclement, which would be a nice chunk out of the Soviets' forces here that are threatening the northern flank of Army Group Center. 10, possibly 10 Soviet formations, most of them corps level, which might net over 100,000 prisoners. In this small little pocket right here, that would be amazing. We had a peek what the front looked like after the Soviets executed their last turn, so let's take a look. No change here in Army Group North's northernmost front. Moving down Pskov, Soviets have moved back in. More than likely we will attack south of Pskov along this sector of the front just to push the Soviets back. And we had the upper hand with our attacks. The Soviets look a little beat up right now in their status. Maybe we can take further advantage of that and possibly get some gains south of Pskov and actually take the city. Moving further south, Soviets just coming online, defending, facing off with our own main line of resistance. I will not attack along this sector of the front. And here is where most of the action will take place for Army Group Center, as we have withdrawn from our main axis of advance and are shifting forces south. For the rest of Army Group Center, we're going to continue to dress our lines, look for some opportunities here in this sector just north of Bryansk. Definitely going to encircle this stray corps. We did some aerial recon, and east of the Bulva, it looks like only these forces a little bit to the north and no forces positioned across the Bulva. I have to think that will change once we come adjacent. But at the very least, there'll be another infantry corps out of the picture. And moving further south of Bryansk, this is where we're starting our buildup for offensive operations. We still have the bridgehead. Soviets routed some of our Italian friends to try to eliminate this bridgehead, but we will widen it and hopefully break out as we have some infantry corps that made it this far south when we were withdrawing from Army Group Center. We don't have the combat power right now for any major impact offensively in this area, but the buildup will continue, and possibly next week we will see some real gains. Moving further south, the finger here, where the Soviets had that salient, they've retracted some of their forces. Still a nice concentration of Soviet forces, potentially to be encircled by attacking north of Sumy and exploiting the bridgehead here. Soviets committed their operational reserves from these major cities to the east, and now they have come abreast with our own lead panzer divisions, where once it looked like there was a breach here. No longer the case. We're going to take a closer look at that as well and see just what we can do to have a breakout and attack north and east to get a pincer movement here. No change here along where the Hungarians are reinforcing the German forces along the west bank of the river. We will move adjacent to the Soviets that have withdrawn a couple miles, a couple hexes, 10 to 20 miles in some places. And again, the Soviets committed their operational reserves. They still seem to have some here on Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye. But where we once saw a single Soviet corps defending along the bank of the Ungulitz, there are now several Soviet formations facing off against 7th Army and 3rd Panzer Corps. The axis of advance will now turn south and east to try and roll up the Soviets along this part of the front to free up our Axis Minor allies and potentially finally get to the Crimea. I didn't check if we received any reinforcements. Arrived air groups, disbanded units, arrived units. Well, that is a support unit. We won't see that physically on the map. We had a increase in skill for one of our Romanian Corps commanders, but nothing on the schedule for reinforcements. That's too bad. We have to work with what we got. So I will go about and execute the plans, and I will be back. All right, moves and attacks complete. The execution of our plans went better than anticipated. Let's start with a situation report with Army Group North. No change along this sector of the front. We attacked south and east of Pskov, again to disrupt the Soviets, dislodge them from digging in, and potentially getting north and east of Pskov. First we have to fight through these swamps and still considerably strong Soviet forces here. But this turn, I believe we got the upper hand on them. Take a look at the attacks. Potentially in the next couple of weeks, we may be able to take Pskov. I think that's in the realm of possibility. Moving further south, this extended part of Army Group North's front, no change, just moving adjacent to the Soviets, making sure we can secure this elongated part of the front so that the Soviets have no chance of getting any success in pushing back our forces. This is going to be more than likely a stalemate, as we talked about in the past. We saw last turn the Soviets got very aggressive, pushing south and west, just north of Smolensk. And we had started to stage our forces after we withdrew them from our main axis of attack to start to send them south. During that time, the Soviets made some progress here, so we redirected the forces that were about to go south. It was a series of coordinated attacks with infantry as well as the 57th Panzer Corps. We look pretty strong here on the outer perimeter of this encirclement. I don't expect the Soviets to be able to break free. And looking north and east, where the Soviets had started to build up forces week after week and start to shuffle them down to the east and to the south, it doesn't look like the Soviets have any considerable forces that could threaten this right now, at least not within a turn's time frame. Very likely, we will be able to finish off 3, 6, 9 Soviet formations. Most of them corps level. Oh, we have an army headquarters too. We'll capture some Soviet leadership. So that was excellent. I didn't bank on achieving this encirclement, but once we started the attacks and the great work that our infantry did to pave the way for the 57th, and also we committed to the 30th Panzer from all the way down here in the south. They contributed greatly to establish 30th Panzer Corps right here, the 60th Motorized Division, and we have our 203rd Panzer Regiment. Taking these 9 formations out of the Soviets' order of battle in this sector will lessen some of the pressure that the Soviets might have been able to apply in the next couple of weeks, because this has been a staging ground, it seemed, for the Soviets. They're very safe in this area, very protected due to the terrain and just the sheer amount of Soviets that they can throw into the line. Moving further south along the breadth of Army Group Center's front, we start to see our main line of resistance taking shape. It looks strong, and it's only going to get stronger as we start to fortify our positions. Facing off, we have, again, a lot of Soviet divisions, but operational reserves. We don't see any immediate threat to this part of the front for Army Group Center. Moving further south, in and around Bryansk, Soviets had built up that force protecting the Bulva as our minor axis of advance was taking place to the south of our main axis of advance. We don't see the Soviets right now in this sector. I think they've shifted south and north. Moving further south, we will see, I think, a major success. And this is where I'm really pleased how this played out. We'll start with the initial breach in the Soviets' lines with the 14th Panzer Corps and the 38th Panzer Corps made that rupture in the Soviets' line, came into contact with the forces defending Sumy, almost taking Sumy, and pushing the Soviets back. We see here they've been mauled with the pressure from very strong infantry formations of our own and our 2 Panzer Corps. I still had gas in the tank, literally speaking, with these 2 Panzer Corps, several of the divisions, and I haven't even moved the 1st Panzer Division. I didn't feel I needed to commit that division up into the spearhead here. It's local reserve right now. So we almost achieved an encirclement with the forces north of Sumy. That included up to 3 Panzer Corps. 1 Panzer Corps still is sitting on the rail here. We also railed down this Panzer Corps here, which is the 37th Panzer Corps. And also Großdeutschland, yes, the motorized division, soon to become a full-fledged Panzer Division. It was a brigade, and now it's been upgraded to a full division. All right, so very fresh Panzer Corps sitting as an operational reserve. Where to commit? We'll see after this next turn how the front looks like when we destroy these Soviet formations in here. Coupled with the 9 we have around Bryansk, Smolensk, there are 12 Soviet formations we are going to force to surrender next turn. It took a lot of effort. I threw every infantry division I had, pushing them to the max, to the north and the south of this encirclement. Several of these infantry divisions were well north, where we had started to shift them south from Army Group Center's area of operations. And the 39th Panzer Corps was staged north here, right around this rail section of rail, where we're going to potentially wait a week or two to move them by rail further south, as we did with this Panzer Corps. As this battle raged and started to take shape, I decided to commit them. Moving from this far north, we still had, amazingly, about 25, even 30 movement factors left. So we were able to, at the very last, take this hex and seal off these Soviets that for so long had caught my eye. That this finger, this salient of theirs, had reached all the way out here, 20 more miles to the west. The Soviets have stronger formations to threaten this encirclement, but we have very strong forces to the north for any attacks the Soviets might attempt on the northern flank of our encirclement. And to the south, these Soviets are preoccupied with the southern pincer, Still a lot of Soviets down here. We will have to deal with them. But right now, 12 Soviet formations will be taken out of the line. I anticipate there will be some pressure from the Soviets from the south, maybe from these formations here, pushing and probably attacking both these panzer divisions, but there is room to withdraw and still maintain cohesion and continue the integrity of this encirclement. Moving further south, no change along this sector of the front. Further south, south of Chikazi, we moved adjacent to the Soviets that had withdrawn. And we look at 3rd Panzer and 11th Army still slugging it out with the Soviets south of Kirovograd and north of Kirovo Rog. I think we are getting the better hand of the Soviets in this sector. Just look at the amount of attacks. The Soviets still are very strong, though, east of the Ingulets, where they had rushed their operational reserves from these city centers. Also, if we continue the pressure here, maybe get a few of their divisions circled. I imagine the Soviets here, feeling the pressure from the north, will withdraw, which will finally allow our Romanians to get east of the Ingul. And that is the situation report for all 3 army groups. We are ready to click next turn. It's been a long July. I think there's been 5 turns covered in July. So we'll still have some offensive operations throughout August and at least a couple turns in September. Got to make the most of it. I'm going to look for similar opportunities like this to have small encirclements to continue to whittle away on the Soviets and to get in position for 1943. I think they're moving north. Are the Soviets going to concede those 2 encirclements and not even try to attack? We have 30 miles for the Soviets in some places to get and relieve their comrades. What are these forces doing? Sumy is ridiculously strong. Look at that. 99. Definitely not assaulting to surround them. Yes, this back and forth struggle south of Pskov. Really have to apologize to Army Group North because they have not had the forces available to them to do anything offensively. But they are playing their role, a vital role, tying up the Soviets up in their area of operations. Are they testing the line where they see Hungarian forces? Looking at these attacks, you can see why I was so interested in moving south to encircle and destroy these strong Soviet forces. Yeah, they're giving as good as they took. Almost. Maybe not. This area might be the next focus for us. But it's much further south than our forces are arrayed right now. Potentially operations in 1943. So they did attack there, made our forces retreat. Yeah, I believe I'm going to rail another Panzer Corps down here, just to start to set the stage for future operations. And maybe another Infantry Corps. Definitely need to plus up forces to the south. I think Army Group North is pretty set for their main line of resistance. And they don't need any bolstering. It's to the south we must go. So not that great of a response from the Soviets. Some localized attacks made some of our forces have to withdraw, and they routed a Romanian cavalry division. They got us over 20,000, a little bit over. Very light tank losses. Meanwhile, the Soviets lost 261 in their attacks. Let's hope this eclipses 6 million by the end of our next turn. I have to remember to look at that. Let's take a snapshot what the front looks like. This sway to the front, very interesting. Soviets broke contact here. Interesting. Pulling back to Veliky Luki. Still strong forces of theirs contesting around Pskov. No attacks made. The farthest north of Army Group North's area of operations. A token effort to relieve their beleaguered troops. And this is looking a little thinner. Still strong, thick array of Soviet forces here. We'll have to take some aerial recon and see if what kind of operational reserves they might have around Poltava and Kharkov and Belgorod, as well as Kursk. They're already building up some reserves here in Kursk. Once we finish off these Soviets in this pocket, it'll free up very, very strong German forces to continue the attack. We'll have to look for some opportunities to get similar encirclements. How does it look to the north? They made no attempt whatsoever to relieve these formations. And what? They are doing something similar that got them in trouble north of Smolensk here, and now these forces here. They can't possibly be. No, they would no way on earth leave these forces with no flank protection. Let's check. Let's send out a recon with this infantry regiment. You gotta be kidding me. Alright, there's contact. There's gotta be forces here. No? Wow. Yeah, I don't like the chances of crossing the Metsa River to encircle just a few divisions here. We'll reconstitute after we finish off the Soviets, dress our lines, and look potentially where the Soviets look very thin and a vast concentration of Soviet airfields. We saw a couple turns ago a field of Soviet formations from Vyazma to Moscow in reaction to our main axis of advance a couple weeks ago. Game time. Where did they go? probably introduced to the front in different places where they felt forces were needed. Yeah. You want to catch one of these on camera? Let's do it. We'll start with 31st Infantry Division. They very well might hold. You know what? We will include these two. Yeah, they're still very strong, but they're out of supply. I want to commit as little as possible. Surrendered! Alright, so those three forces, those three formations, the Soviets, 42,000 prisoners. That is fantastic. We're going to move. We're going to pressure this pocket with some security regiments, and we will attack with let's see what we can do. Holding out. Yeah, we're gonna have to bring in more. Light losses. Soviets are surrounded. Let's bring in. There we go. The headquarters is routed. 2 surrenders. Another 42,000. So 80,000 prisoners already. Excellent. Do we have enough movement factors to move the 212th back in line? Yes, we do. We have the 123rd. These two forces, these two divisions will attack from the north and the south. That loosened them up a little bit. Does not. Huh. Oh, okay. The 161st doesn't have enough movement factors to conduct a deliberate. All right. Stubborn, fighting to the last. Don't want to commit any of our Panzer Corps. Well, whatever. What's the 57th Panzer going to do anyways? Probably just reposition. No attacks planned. But we'll still try to get it done with infantry. There we go. 39,000. I thought there'd be more. 164 tanks, 491 artillery pieces. Very good. So with that smaller encirclement, let's look at the casualties we caused. 193,000 Soviet losses this turn. Almost made it to 6 million. I think it's going to take one more attack and we'll go over 6 million casualties, Soviets. All right, I'm going to finish up the video here. That was excellent. We managed to destroy the Soviets in this smaller encirclement north of Smolensk. I'm excited to do the same to the larger encirclement to the south. We'll figure out what we're going to do with the 57th Panzer Corps and the infantry that took part in this encirclement and start to think about shifting them south. We still have the 6th Infantry Corps that's been idle. They're waiting on the rail lines to start their progress south. Same can be said for the 36th Panzer Corps. We now have, I would say, about 80% of the combat power that we had with our main axis of advance in Army Group Center's area of operations is not 2 to 3 weeks ago. And now they're in good position to do further damage. So we're going to take a real close look at this part of the front. And also what it might look like trying to do some damage to the Soviets where they're really strong. And we just don't have the combat power to take advantage of the Soviets here around Kirovograd and Kirovorog. Looks like some of our Romanian friends are going to get over the Ingul finally and start contributing. Let's take a quick peek. Go ahead, 1st Guard Romanian Infantry Division. Cross the Ingul. All right. Very good. Well done, Romanians. So I think the Germans recovered nicely from the challenges they faced in Army Group Center's area of operations along that main axis of advance when the mud set in. And not too far removed from that, we're in a nice position to cause further damage to the Soviets in this area of operations as well as in the weeks to come further south. It's a step in the right direction. And as far as 1942 goes, not so bad with all factors in consideration. I hope you enjoyed this video. Can't wait to destroy the Soviets in this pocket and look for future opportunities. This is First Fire, non-assault move out.